I'm 71, and my knees forecast weather more accurately than the phone in my pocket. That phone is a 5-year-old Android with a spiderweb crack in the corner, kept alive by habit and duct tape optimism. It sits every morning beside the sugar bowl like a loyal dog that can't fetch anymore, but still watches the door. The house is quieter than it used to be. Not the dramatic kind of quiet people write poems about, just the practical kind. No second toothbrush in a cup, no second mug drying upside down on the dish rack, no television murmuring in the background, because someone liked noise more than silence. My wife, Diane, died on a Wednesday at 2:17 at M.IN 2016. I remember the time because the nurse wrote it in blue ink on a clipboard. I stared at it like it was a typo that could be corrected if I complained politely enough. After Diane, I learned the small arts of living alone. I learned that the cheap brand of coffee filters tears if you try to pull one out with a wet hand. I learned that the smoke alarm goes off when you forget bacon for 60 seconds too long, and that the ceiling fan will not save your dignity. My mornings became a ritual of stubborn comfort. I still make oatmeal the way Diane did, too much cinnamon, a pinch of salt, raisins soaked in hot water first so they don't sit there like pebbles. I still butter toast with the same old butter knife with a slightly bent tip. It came in a set we got as a wedding gift in 1978, and it's outlasted half the people who danced at our reception. The kitchen has that lived-in geography. The worn spot in front of the sink where my heels land, the cabinet that sticks unless you lift it a little, the drawer that holds rubber bands, batteries, 3 takeout menus from restaurants that closed during COVID, and a tiny screwdriver I can never find when I actually need it. This house is paid for, not almost paid for. Paid for. I bought it in 1994, June 3rd, 1994 to be precise. I was 40. Diane was 38. We signed the papers at a title company whose lobby smelled like carpet glue and coffee that had been reheated too many times. The purchase price was $186,000. We put down $40,000, which felt like handing over a piece of our future in a brown envelope. We worked for it. I worked overtime. Diane clipped coupons and made casseroles like we were feeding an army. We didn't vacation in Hawaii. We didn't buy boats. We had one decent car and one car that always had a check engine light, like a permanent eyebrow raised at our life choices. By the time we finished paying the mortgage, November 2014, I framed the payoff letter. Not because I'm sentimental, but because you don't forget the taste of finally owning the roof above your head. 2 days after the payoff letter came, Diane stood in this very kitchen, tapped the frame with her fingernail, and said, "No one can take this from us now." She didn't know how inventive people can be. On Tuesday, March 18, 2025 at 6:09 a.m., my kettle whistled and my phone buzzed on the counter. Melissa flashed across the screen. My daughter. She's 38. Blonde. Always looks like she's in a hurry to be somewhere more important than wherever you are. She has a way of speaking that sounds like she's smoothing wrinkles out of the air. I answered on the third ring because I'm still old-fashioned enough to think ignoring a call will make a problem worse. "Dad," she said, breathy, like she'd been running. "You up?" "I'm 71, I said. "I don't get up. I get awake." She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh that reached her eyes. I knew that laugh. It meant she wanted something. "Listen," she said, "I'm going to swing by after work. We need to go over some paperwork." Paperwork is how people my age get robbed politely. "What kind of paperwork?" I asked. "The house stuff," she said, too quickly. "Estate planning. You know, just smart. Everyone's doing it. I had a will. I had a folder. I had a lawyer I'd used once in 2017 to redo the beneficiaries after Diane died. Melissa had never asked about it. Not once. Not when I was grieving. Not when I was sorting Diane's sweaters into donation piles that smelled like her perfume. Now suddenly she was interested. "Okay," I said. "Bring it." "Great," she said. "Oh, and Dad? Don't sign anything before I get there. I just want to make sure it's all correct." I stared at the phone after she hung up. "Don't sign anything before I get there." As if I was wandering around signing random documents like a man lost in a blizzard. I made my oatmeal. I washed the bowl. I wiped the counter even though it was already clean. That's what I do when something feels off. I put my hands on ordinary things so my mind can pretend everything is ordinary too. Around noon, I checked the mail. There was an envelope from my homeowner's insurance company. Not unusual. Except it wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Hart Property Holdings, LLC. Care of Melissa Hart. My last name is Hart. My daughter's last name is Hart. But I have never had an LLC. I stood on the porch with that envelope in my hand, the wind pushing dry leaves against the steps like it was trying to sweep the place clean. Inside, the letter was a policy update notice. It listed my house, my address, the same roof, the same walls, and it listed a new email address for notifications, Melissa's. It also listed a new mailing address for billing, Melissa's apartment, and it listed a new phone number, Melissa's. I read it 3 times slow, like if I read carefully enough the words would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. Then my phone buzzed again. A text. Melissa. Hey, Dad. Just a heads up, the house is already sold. Closing next week. Don't panic. I handled it. I sat down at the kitchen table like someone had unplugged me. Already sold. I read it again. Already sold. There are phrases that do something to the human body. We need to talk. It's malignant. He didn't make it. And now apparently already sold. I didn't reply. I stared at the toaster like it was going to offer a suggestion. Then I did what lonely people do when the world tilts. I made coffee. I poured it into Diane's mug, the one with faded blue flowers, and I watched the steam curl up like a question mark. At 2:03 p.m., Melissa rang the doorbell and let herself in without waiting. She walked in with a tote bag and a bright smile that looked practiced. Dad, she said, like she hadn't just texted me a sentence that would make a person's blood run cold. I stood up slowly. Explain, I said. Oh my God, okay, she sighed, dropping her tote on the chair. I knew you'd do this. I knew you'd freak out. I'm not freaking out, I said. I'm asking you what you mean. She pulled out a folder like a magician, revealing the first prop. You're getting older, she said. The way people say you're getting older when they want to turn your life into a spreadsheet. I'm aware. And the market is amazing right now, she continued. This house is worth like a fortune. You could be living somewhere easy. No stairs. No maintenance. And Dad, this neighborhood is changing. I looked out the window. The neighborhood was the same it had been for 30 years. Mrs. Klein walking her small dog. The teenage boy across the street revving his motorcycle. The mail truck stopping exactly at 1:12 p.m. like it was on rails. What did you do? I asked again. Melissa flipped open a folder. Papers. Tabs. Highlighter marks. She slid one sheet toward me. At the top in bold was the name of a title company. Below it, the words closing disclosure. My address was on it. A sales price, $612,000. Closing date, March 27th, 2025. Buyer, Ridgeview Capital Partners. Seller, Hart Property Holdings, LLC. I felt my stomach drop and then try to climb back up out of pure spite. I didn't agree to sell my house, I said. Melissa's smile tightened. It's done, Dad, she said softly, as if she was soothing a child. It's already sold. How? I asked. She tapped a line on the paper. Power of attorney, she said, like it was a magic spell that made theft legal. You signed it last year. I stared at her. I signed no power of attorney. Her eyes flicked away for half a second. Just half. Then she recovered. It was at Thanksgiving, she said. Remember? You were tired. You said you trusted me. Thanksgiving. I remembered the turkey. Dry as cardboard. I remembered Melissa arriving late, irritated, snapping at the cashier on the way because her card wouldn't tap right. I remembered her handing me a pen. Just sign here, Dad, she'd said, smiling too big. It's for the hospital paperwork, just in case, you know, so I can help if anything happens. I remember glancing at the top of the page and seeing a logo, some medical group, and then signing because Diane's death taught me that emergencies don't schedule themselves. I remember thinking, I'll read it later. Of course I didn't. I didn't read it later because the next day I had to fix a leak under the sink. And then the furnace made a noise like a dying animal. And then life did what it always does. It piled up small things until the big things slipped in unnoticed. Melissa watched my face. You're welcome, she said. Most parents would be grateful their kid is taking care of this. I felt a small, sharp heat behind my eyes. Not tears, anger. You sold my house, I said slowly, without telling me. I told you, she snapped. I literally texted you. That's not telling, I said. That's announcing. She put her hands on her hips. Dad, listen, she said, exasperated. You're going to get money. A lot of money. You'll be fine. How much? I asked. She hesitated. The net proceeds will be, we'll see, she said. There are fees. There's the LLC setup. There's the realtor. Realtor. I repeated. She waved her hand. It's normal, she said. You don't understand the process. I looked down at the closing disclosure. There were line items, real numbers, real fees. There was a payoff listed for a mortgage of $84,900. I didn't have a mortgage. Explain this, I said, tapping a payoff line. Melissa's face didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. That's a line of credit, she said, for repairs. What repairs? The roof, she said quickly. The kitchen. Dad, the house is old. It needs work. The roof is fine, I said. The kitchen is ugly, not broken. You're impossible, she said, voice rising. You're sitting on an asset and you're acting like it's a sacred shrine. It is a sacred shrine, I thought. Not because it's pretty, because it's mine. I looked at her, really looked. My daughter, my child, standing in my kitchen like she owned the air, holding papers that treated my life like an entry on a balance sheet. Where is the money going? I asked. Melissa's smile came back, sharp and bright. Dad, she said, leaning in as if she was sharing a secret. I'm doing this for you. That was when I knew. People who are doing something for you don't need to say they're doing it for you. I picked up the closing disclosure and read the title company name again. Sovereign Title and Escrow. Address. A strip mall on Westfield Road. Phone number on the bottom. Melissa watched me, tense. Don't call them, she said. I looked up. Why not? Because you'll confuse them, she said. And it'll delay closing, and then the buyer will back out. Dad, do you want to ruin everything? Ruin everything. That phrase, like I was the threat. I nodded once. Okay, I said. Melissa exhaled like she'd won. Then she reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small box. Also, she said, forcing brightness, I brought you a new phone. The one you have is ancient. This is safer, better. She placed it on the table like an offering. A new phone, a new line, a new way to control. I didn't touch it. I'm tired, I said. You should go. Her eyebrows shot up. What? I said I'm tired. I repeated, my voice calm. I need to think. Melissa's jaw tightened. I don't have time for this, she said. Closing is next week. Everything is set up. I heard you, I said. She grabbed her tote bag, irritated. Fine, she snapped. But don't do anything stupid. She walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glass in the cabinet. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she left. Then I picked up my cracked phone, and I dialed the number on the closing disclosure. The woman who answered the phone sounded like she had a headset pinched too tight around her head. Sovereign Title and Escrow, she said. This is Karen. How can I help you? My name is Walter Hart, I said. I'm calling about a closing scheduled for March 27th on 1128 Maple Ridge Drive. There was a pause, a clicking of keys. Karen said. Yes, I see that file. I'm the homeowner, I said. Another pause. Longer. Sir, she said carefully. Our file lists the seller as Hart Property Holdings, LLC. I don't have an LLC, I said. Karen's voice dropped into that professional tone people use when they want to sound helpful without becoming legally involved. Well, she said, we have documentation on file. What documentation? I asked. A power of attorney, she said, and a limited liability company formation document. My hand tightened around the phone. Who provided those? I asked. I'm not sure I can disclose that, she said quickly. You can tell me if my name is on them, I said. Is my signature on them? Silence. Then, yes, she said. I felt a coldness settle in my chest. I didn't sign them knowingly, I said. Karen cleared her throat. Sir, if you believe there is fraud, you should contact an attorney, she said. We're a neutral third party. I understand, I said, and I did. Neutral third parties are how wrongdoing wears a suit and sits in air conditioning. Can you email me the documents? I asked. I don't have an email address for you, she said. Because my daughter changed it, I said. Karen didn't respond. Here's my email, I said, spelling it out slowly. She hesitated, then typed. I can send you a copy of the closing disclosure and the seller package, she said. But sir, if there's a dispute, it may delay the closing. Good, I said. She made a small noise. I'll send it within the hour, she said, and hung up. I sat at my table and stared at Diane's mug. In the quiet, I could hear the refrigerator hum, the clock tick, the neighbor's lawnmower in the distance, like someone trying to cut their way through time. Within 40 minutes, my email pinged. There were attachments, PDFs. They looked clean, official, stamped. The kind of papers that don't care what's true, only what's filed. I opened the first. Durable power of attorney. My name, my address, my signature. Dated November 24th, 2024. Thanksgiving. Agent Melissa Hart. Granted powers. Real estate transactions, banking, business formation. I scrolled. Notarized by Samantha J. Price, Notary Public. Commission number. Expiration date. It was all there. So tidy. My stomach turned. I opened the LLC formation document. Hart Property Holdings, LLC. Organizer, Melissa Hart. Member, Walter Hart. Registered agent. Some service with a P.O. box. And then I opened a third document. A loan document. Home equity line of credit. $85,000. Lender. Pioneer Community Bank. Borrower. Hart Property Holdings, LLC. Collateral my house. Dated January 9th, 2025. The day after my birthday. I didn't even get a cake. But someone got an $85,000 line of credit. My hands are shaking slightly. The way they do when anger tries to stay inside your skin and your body doesn't cooperate. I clicked the loan doc again. There was my signature. Again, I wanted to believe it was a mistake. A copy-paste. An error. But the signatures looked like mine. Not perfectly. A little rushed. A little heavier. Like someone had guided my hand. Or traced it from another document. I sat back, breathing slowly. Here's the thing about being old. People think you're fragile. People think you're confused. People think you'll make a scene and then get tired and give up. They don't understand that fragility is different from patience. I had been patient for 7 decades. I knew how to wait. What I didn't know, until that moment, was how to fight. At 4:22 p.m., I called Pioneer Community Bank. A recorded voice told me my call might be monitored for quality assurance, which is a nice way of saying, we're recording you, but we want you to feel like it's for your benefit. After 3 menus and 1 cheerful hold song that sounded like a dentist office had hired a jazz trio, I got human. Pioneer Community Bank, a man said. This is Daniel. Daniel, I said. My name is Walter Hart. I need to know why there is a home equity line of credit on my property. He asked for my social security number. I gave it. He asked for my address. I gave it. He asked for security questions. I answered the one about my first car, 1982 Ford, and the one about my high school, Westfield. Then he said, Okay, Mr. Hart. I see a line of credit under Hart Property Holdings, LLC. I don't have an LLC, I said. He paused. It's linked to your profile, he said. And the authorized agent is Melissa Hart. I closed my eyes. Daniel, I said. I did not authorize that. I believe my signature was obtained under false pretenses. There was another pause, the kind where someone starts mentally flipping through policies. I'm sorry to hear that, he said cautiously. If you believe there's fraud, you'll need to file a report. I want the funds frozen, I said. I can't do that verbally, he said, but I can escalate to our fraud department. You'll need to come in. Today, I said. Our branch closes at 5, he said. I looked at the clock. 4:31. I'll be there, I said. I drove to the bank with my heart beating like I was 20 again and about to do something reckless. The branch smelled like carpet and disinfectant, the kind of smell businesses use to convince you they are responsible. A young woman at the front desk looked up, smiling. Hi, how can we help you? I need the fraud department, I said. Now, her smile faltered. Do you have an appointment? I leaned in slightly, not threatening, just firm. I have an $85,000 loan on my house that I didn't authorize, I said. So no, I don't have an appointment. That got results. They put me in a glass office with a man in a tie that looked too tight around his neck. His nameplate said branch manager, as if that title itself should calm me down. He opened my file. He looked at the documents. He frowned. "Mr. Hart," he said slowly, "this appears to have been opened under a legal power of attorney." "I didn't knowingly sign that power of attorney," I said. He pursed his lips, cautious. "Is that your signature?" he asked. "It looks like my signature," I said. "That's the problem." He leaned back like he was trying to see the whole picture without stepping into it. "Do you have anyone who can help you?" he asked, and I knew what he meant. "Do you have anyone who can take you home, Grandpa? Do you have a caretaker? Are you confused?" I smiled, bitter. "I have a lawyer," I said. I didn't. Not yet. But I would. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my table with the PDFs printed out, spread like a crime scene. The power of attorney, the LLC, the loan, the closing disclosure. I highlighted. I circled. I wrote notes in the margins like I was back in school, and the teacher had promised there would be a test. At 2:11 a.m., I noticed something. On the notarization page, the notary's name, Samantha J. Price. I didn't know her, but the notary stamp listed a business address, a small shipping store on Elm Street. I had been there once, to mail Diane's old jewelry to our niece, a place that rented mailbox slots and sold bubble wrap. I stared at the address until my eyes hurt. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened my desk drawer and took out Diane's old red notebook, the one she used to track bills. In it, she wrote everything, dates, amounts, check numbers. She used to say, "If you write it down, I can't pretend it didn't happen." I flipped to the back, where she had taped business cards. There was one yellowed with age, from an attorney named Ralph Bennett. He'd handled our refinance in 2005, a quiet man with heavy eyebrows. I hadn't spoken to him in 20 years. At 8:03 a.m. the next morning, I called his office. A receptionist answered. "Bennett and Associates," she said. "My name is Walter Hart," I said. "I need to speak to Mr. Bennett. It's urgent." There was a pause. "Mr. Bennett retired," she said, "but we can schedule you with one of our attorneys." "Fine," I said. Today, I sounded like a man who had decided not to be polite anymore. Their office was in a building with a lobby that tried to look expensive by putting a fake plant next to a water feature. The plant was dusty. The water feature was broken. That felt appropriate. I met with an attorney named Mina Alvarez. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, practical shoes. The kind of person who doesn't waste words because words cost money. She listened while I explained. She didn't interrupt. She took notes. When I finished, she leaned back and said, "Okay. Just okay. Not, oh my God. Not, that's awful. Not, families are complicated. Just okay." Then she slid a legal pad toward me. "I want a timeline," she said. "Dates. Any communication from your daughter. Any bank records. Any mail. Everything." I laughed once without humor. "You're going to love me," I said. "I'm organized because my wife trained me." Mina's mouth twitched into something like a smile. "Good," she said, "because this is going to come down to paper." She looked at the notarization. "Samantha Price," she murmured. "We'll subpoena the notary journal." She looked at the LLC filing. "We'll pull the state records," she said, "and we'll file a fraud affidavit with the county recorder." She looked at the HELOC. "We'll notify the bank's fraud unit," she said, "and we'll put them on notice that the lien is disputed." Then she looked at the closing disclosure and tapped the date. "March 27th, she said. "That's in 9 days." "Yes," I said. She nodded slowly, like someone calculating. "We can stop this," she said. "But we're not going to do it by calling your daughter and yelling." I stared at her. "Why not?" I asked. "Because I have plenty of yelling." "Because yelling doesn't get recorded in county records," she said. "We're going to do this where it matters." She leaned forward. "At the closing," she said. The idea hit me like a cold splash. "You want me to go there?" I asked. "I want you to be present," she said. "Because if your daughter is planning to close on a fraudulent sale, she's betting you won't show up. She's betting you'll be embarrassed, confused, quiet." I swallowed. "And if I show up?" Mina's eyes were steady. "Then she has a problem," she said. That afternoon, we drove to the county recorder's office, a beige building that smelled like old carpet and patience. We pulled the property records. My name was still on the deed, thank God. But there was something else. A document recorded on February 3rd, 2025. Affidavit of Authority for Hart Property Holdings, LLC. It listed Melissa as the authorized agent to convey property. It didn't transfer ownership, but it positioned her like a hand hovering over the lock. Mina made copies. Then we filed something I'd never heard of before, a notice of disputed authority and a fraud alert request. It was bureaucratic, slow, and deeply satisfying in the way only paperwork can be when it's on your side. On the way out, Mina said, "We also need to talk about adult protective services." I bristled. "I'm not incompetent," I said. "No," she said calmly, "but that's not the point. Financial exploitation of older adults is taken seriously when it's documented. The state doesn't care if your daughter says she was helping. They care about signatures, notarizations, and money." She paused. "And the fact that she used a POA to take a line of credit is bold." Bold. That's one word for it. At 6:42 p.m., back at home, I found my mailbox key missing from the hook by the door. Melissa had taken it at some point. I didn't even notice when. The small violations are always the worst. They're how people test your boundaries, like you're a fence they're trying to climb. I drove to the post office and requested a lock change. The clerk looked at me with sympathy. "Someone else has your key?" she asked. "My daughter," I said. The clerk's face did something like a wince. "Yeah," she said quietly. "We see that a lot." That night, Melissa called. I let it ring. She called again and again. Finally, she texted, "Melissa, why are you calling the title company?" "They called me. Stop messing things up." I stared at the message. "Stop messing things up," as if I was the one forging signatures. I replied with the only thing I could that wouldn't give her more information. "Me, we'll talk soon." Then I turned my phone face down and ate a microwave dinner standing at the counter, because sitting felt too vulnerable. In the following days, my life became a strange mix of ordinary routines and legal warfare. I still made oatmeal. I still watered the dying plant in the living room. I still took out the trash on Thursday night, because the garbage truck comes Friday at 7:10 a.m. and I like to be ready. But now, between the oatmeal and the trash, there were emails from Mina. There were forms. There were calls with the bank's fraud department. There were PDF attachments with titles like Affidavit of Forgery and Cease and Desist. On March 22nd, Mina forwarded me a message from Sovereign Title. "Your daughter has been calling," Mina wrote. "She's pressuring them to proceed. They're nervous." That's good. Nervous. That's what the truth does to people who prefer convenience. On March 24th, Mina called me at 9:17 a.m. "We pulled the notary journal," she said. My heart jumped. And Samantha Price notarized that POA, Mina said. "But the journal entry is interesting." "How?" I asked. Mina exhaled. "The journal lists the signer as Walter Hart, but the ID presented was a driver's license number that does not match yours," she said. A cold, clean anger spread through me. "So she used fake ID," I said. "Or someone helped," Mina said. "We have enough to involve law enforcement." I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where Diane once paid bills, and hummed to herself. I looked at the wood grain. "You know what hurts?" I said, my voice quieter than I expected. "It's not even the money. It's that she didn't think I would notice." Mina didn't rush to comfort me. She just said, "That's why we're going to the closing." The week before March 27th had the strange feeling of waiting for a storm you can see on the horizon. Melissa didn't come by. She didn't call me Dad in a sweet voice anymore. She turned cold. I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Please be reasonable." The message was for Melissa. She wrote like she was composing a business memo. "Dad, you're overreacting and making everything harder. I've done all the work. You'll have money and you'll be safe. If you show up and cause a scene, you'll embarrass yourself. Please stop." Melissa, embarrass yourself. That's a weapon people use on older men. They know we grew up believing dignity matters, and they twist it until you think silence is noble. I forwarded it to Mina. She replied with one sentence: "Save everything." On March 26th, the day before the closing, I did something I hadn't done since Diane died. I walked through my house slowly, room by room, and I took pictures. Not for sentimentality, for evidence. The living room, the Warren recliner, the framed photo of Diane at the beach, the stack of mail on the side table. The kitchen, The scratched countertop, the cheap microwave, the jar of cinnamon. The hallway. Diane's quilt folded over the banister. The bedroom. The empty side of a closet that still smelled faintly like her. It felt like preparing for a funeral. Except this time I was burying a relationship. That evening, Mina came by with a folder. "We're ready," she said. "What happens tomorrow?" I asked. "We walk in," she said. "We stay calm. We let them speak. And when the moment is right, when they're committed, we stop it." "How do you stop it?" I asked. She tapped the folder. "Police report," she said. "Fraud affidavit. Notice to the title company. And this is important. A representative from Adult Protective Services will be on standby. The bank's fraud investigator will also be available by phone." I stared at her. This was bigger than my kitchen table now. "This is going to hurt her," I said. And it came out like a confession. Mina's eyes didn't soften. "She hurt you first," she said. "That night, I slept in fits. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Melissa's handwriting on the please be reasonable email like it was branded into my eyelids. At 6:30 a.m., I got up. I shaved carefully because if I was going to fight, I was going to look like a man who still existed. I put on my best shirt, the blue one Diane always liked, and a blazer that still had a faint smell of cedar from the closet. I ate toast. I didn't taste it. At 9:05 a.m., Mina picked me up. We drove to Sovereign Title and Escrow. The strip mall parking lot was half full. A nail salon, a vape shop, a frozen yogurt place that always seemed empty, and the title company with its neat sign and glass doors. When we walked in, the lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and quiet panic. A receptionist looked up. "Hello," she said brightly. "Do you have an appointment?" Mina smiled politely. "Yes," she said. "We're here for the closing of 1128 Maple Ridge Drive." The receptionist glanced at the schedule and then looked at me. Her eyes widened slightly. "Mr. Hart?" she asked. I nodded. She swallowed. "Please have a seat," she said, and her voice lost some of its cheer. In the waiting area, I saw Melissa. She sat with her legs crossed, perfectly composed, wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my first car payment. Her hair was smooth. Her makeup was flawless. Next to her sat a man in a gray suit I didn't recognize. A realtor, maybe, or someone from the buyer. Melissa's eyes flicked up and landed on me. For a second. Just a second. Her face drained of color. Then she recovered and stood up fast. "Dad," she hissed, walking toward me. "What are you doing here?" I looked at her calmly. "Same as you," I said. "I'm here about my house." Her nostrils flared. "It's not your house," she snapped. "It's already sold." Mina stepped forward. "Melissa Hart?" she asked, voice even. Melissa's eyes flicked to Mina. "And you are?" Melissa asked, contemptuous. "I'm Walter Hart's attorney," Mina said. That word, attorney, hit Melissa like a slap. Her smile tightened. "Oh," she said, "so you're doing this. You're the one confusing him." I felt something crack in me at the way she said him, like I was a malfunctioning appliance. Mina didn't react. "We'll discuss it in the closing room," Mina said. Melissa leaned in toward me, voice low and sharp. "You're making a huge mistake," she whispered. "Do you want to end up alone? Because this is how you end up alone." I looked at her. "Honey, I thought I'd been alone. I just didn't realize you were part of it." A door opened. Karen, the woman from the phone, appeared. "Melissa," she called. "Mr. Hart? Ms. Alvarez? We're ready." Melissa straightened like she was stepping onto a stage. "Finally," she said, and walked toward the room. I followed. The closing room was too bright. Fluorescent lighting that makes everyone look slightly sick. A rectangular table sat in the center with neat stacks of paper, pens laid out like surgical tools, and a bowl of mints no one ever eats because everyone's mouth is dry with stress. There were name cards. Melissa's said, "Seller's representative." Mine said, "Walter Hart." That made my throat tighten, because even the paper, even the room, even the process, some part of it still recognized me. At the far end of the table sat a woman in a navy blazer. She had a stack of documents in front of her and the expression of someone who had seen every variety of human greed and now just wanted to go home on time. "This is Jennifer," Karen said. "She's a closing agent." Jennifer nodded briskly. "Good morning," she said. "Let's get started." Melissa smiled at Jennifer like they were on the same team. Great, Melissa said. We're eager to wrap this up. Jennifer looked at her file. Before we begin, Jennifer said, I need to confirm identities. Melissa slid her driver's license across the table with a small flourish. I slid mine too. Jennifer checked them, then glanced at Mina. Mina showed her bar card and a letter of representation. Jennifer nodded, businesslike. Okay, Jennifer said. We're closing the sale of 1128 Maple Ridge Drive. Seller, Hart Property Holdings, LLC. Buyer, Ridgeview Capital Partners. The man in the gray suit nodded. He had the bland smile of someone paid to look agreeable. Jennifer continued. We have a power of attorney on file granting Melissa Hart authority to sign on behalf of Walter Hart, member of the LLC, she said. Melissa, you'll be signing as agent. Melissa leaned back, confident. Yes, she said. That's correct. Jennifer looked down at her checklist. Before we proceed, she said, I need the seller's affirmation. Melissa reached for the pen. Jennifer raised a hand. Not you, Jennifer said. Melissa froze. What? She snapped. Jennifer turned her gaze to me. Mr. Walter Hart, she said. I need to confirm. Are you present and aware of this sale? The room went still. Melissa's face tightened. Jennifer, she said sharply. That's unnecessary. I'm the agent. He's. Jennifer held up another hand. It is necessary, Jennifer said calmly, because our office received a notice of disputed authority yesterday, and we received a fraud alert filed with the county recorder. Melissa's eyes widened. Her skin went pale, like color draining from a photograph. What? She whispered. Jennifer turned a page. And because, Jennifer said, voice even, we received a call from Pioneer Community Bank's fraud investigator. Melissa's mouth opened and closed once, like a fish realizing water has rules. The man in the gray suit shifted uncomfortably. Mina's voice was calm. Jennifer, Mina said, my client is not consenting to the sale. The power of attorney was obtained under false pretenses, and the notarization appears improper. We have documentation. Melissa snapped her head toward me. You did this, she hissed. I looked at her. I said simply. Jennifer's eyes moved to Melissa. Ms. Hart, Jennifer said, we cannot proceed with closing under these circumstances. Melissa's composure cracked. You can't just stop it, she snapped. The house is already sold. Jennifer's tone didn't change. A house is not already sold until it's properly conveyed, she said. And we have reason to believe the conveyance authority is disputed. Melissa's voice rose, sharp and desperate. You're ruining everything, she yelled, and for the first time, she sounded like herself. Raw, not polished. Do you know what I did to set this up? Do you know how much work? She stopped. Her eyes flicked to the man in the gray suit, like she suddenly remembered she was performing. But it was too late. The mask had slipped. Mina slid a folder across the table to Jennifer. This contains a fraud affidavit, copies of the notary journal discrepancy, the bank's notice, and Mr. Hart's statement, Mina said. Jennifer opened it, scanning. Melissa's hands trembled slightly. Dad, she said, softer now, pleading in the ugliest way. Come on, just stop. We can talk about this later. Later. That word again. Later is where older people's rights go to die. I leaned forward, my voice quiet but clear. No, I said. Melissa's eyes flashed. You don't understand, she hissed. I needed it. There it was. Not we. Not you. I. Jennifer looked up from a folder. I'm going to step out and contact our compliance officer, she said. Karen will remain with you. Jennifer stood and left the room. Karen looked like she wanted to be anywhere else on earth. Melissa turned fully toward me, her voice shaking with anger now that the room was no longer obedient. You're selfish, she spat. You're sitting in that house alone, like some king of nothing. Do you know how hard it is out there? Rent, bills, loans. I stared at her. You took out an $85,000 loan against my house, I said. Melissa's eyes darted. That was for renovations, she snapped. For who? I asked. For the buyer? For the imaginary LLC? Or for you? She slapped the table. Stop acting like I'm a criminal, she yelled. Mina's voice cut through, cold and precise. Melissa, she said, The state may decide you are. That's not my client's choice anymore. Melissa's breathing turned shallow. The man in the gray suit cleared his throat. I'm going to need to report this to Ridgeview, he said, stiff. He stood and gathered his papers like someone packing up after a party that turned ugly. Melissa looked at him, panicked. Wait, she started. He didn't wait. He left. And that right there was the moment the room changed. Because Melissa had always relied on social pressure. The idea that everyone would move forward because it was easier. But once a stranger walked out, the spell broke. Melissa looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time in years. You're going to destroy me, she said, voice small now. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the table. I didn't give her drama. I gave her the truth. You destroyed you, I said. I just showed up. Karen's phone rang. She answered, murmuring. Then she looked up. Law enforcement is on the way, she said quietly. Melissa's head snapped. What? She said. Mina's voice was steady. We filed a report, she said. This is a financial exploitation case involving forged documentation and a fraudulent lien. It's out of our hands now. Melissa stood abruptly, chair scraping. No, she said, shaking her head. No, Dad, tell her to stop. Tell them it's fine. I looked at her. I thought of Diane's payoff letter in the frame. I thought of Melissa as a little girl, running through this house with sticky hands, laughing. I thought of Thanksgiving, of her pushing a pen at me, and I felt something inside me settle. Not softness, not cruelty, just clarity. It's not fine, I said. Melissa's face twisted. You're dead to me, she whispered, the last weapon she had. I nodded once. I can live with that, I said. I already have. When the police arrived, it wasn't a dramatic raid. No shouting. No handcuffs in a cinematic way. 2 officers came in, calm. They spoke to Mina. They spoke to Karen. They took statements. Melissa sat with her arms wrapped around herself, shaking slightly. Her skin still pale. Jennifer returned, face tight. The closing's canceled, she said firmly. All funds are frozen pending investigation. Melissa made a sound. Half sob, half rage. I didn't look away, because looking away is what let her get this far. People imagine justice as a moment, a gavel, a confession, a villain dragged away. Real justice is usually paperwork and time. Over the next weeks, my life became a parade of forms. The bank froze the line of credit and opened an investigation. They requested handwriting samples. They requested a statement. They requested copies of my ID. The county recorder flagged any future filings on my property for review. I signed a new affidavit stating no conveyance would be valid without my in-person notarization. Adult Protective Services assigned a caseworker named Tanya, a woman with kind eyes and a voice that sounded like she'd seen too many families eat their own. She visited my home on April 2nd, 2025. She looked around, taking notes. Do you feel safe? She asked. In the house, I said. She nodded. I looked at the walls, the furniture, Diane's photo. I feel awake, I said. Tanya's mouth tightened with sympathy. Your daughter may contact you, she said. She may attempt to pressure you. If she threatens you, if she shows up, call us. Call the police. Don't negotiate. It's strange, being told not to negotiate with your own child. But then again, it's strange being robbed by your own child. Melissa did contact me, not with apologies, with strategy. On April 6th, she left a voicemail. Her voice was sweet, trembling. Dad, she said, please. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it would get this serious. We can fix this. Just tell them you misunderstood. I listened to it twice, not because I believed her, because I wanted to hear if she ever once said the words I was wrong. She didn't. On April 9th, she texted, Melissa, if you don't stop this, I'll tell everyone you have dementia. I stared at the screen. There it was, another classic tool. If you won't comply, we'll smear you. I forwarded it to Mina. Mina replied within 10 minutes. Good. That's witness intimidation. Save it. I didn't respond to Melissa. I changed my locks. I installed a simple camera doorbell that sent alerts to my phone. I hated that I had to do that. I hated that the home Diane and I built now needed surveillance like a convenience store. But I did it anyway. On April 18th, Mina called. The DA is interested, she said. My throat tightened. What does that mean? I asked. It means this may become criminal, she said. Forgery, fraud, exploitation. Also, the notary may be in trouble if the journal discrepancy holds. I sat down. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. Because the person facing consequences wasn't a stranger. It was my daughter. On May 7th, there was a hearing. Not a dramatic courtroom with wooden benches and a crowd. A small, sterile room with a judge who looked like he'd rather be eating lunch. Melissa appeared with a public defender. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her face was pale again, but this time it wasn't surprise. It was fear. When she looked at me, her eyes flashed, not with regret, with blame, as if I had done this to her. The prosecutor laid out the facts like a grocery list. A power of attorney executed under questionable circumstances that a notarization with mismatched ID, an LLC formed to facilitate control over property that a home equity line opened, without the homeowner's informed consent that an attempted sale of the property. The judge asked Melissa if she understood the charges. Melissa's voice cracked. Yes, she said. Then the judge looked at me. Mr. Hart, he said, do you wish to make a statement? I stood. My knees protested, but I stood anyway. I looked at Melissa, and I said, I raised you to be safe in the world. I didn't raise you to make me unsafe. Melissa flinched as if I'd slapped her. The judge set conditions. No contact order pending investigation. Financial restitution would be considered. The fraudulent lien was to be resolved through the bank's process, but the court would monitor. When I walked out of the building, the sun was bright and indifferent. Mina walked beside me. You did the right thing, she said. I exhaled slowly. I know, I said. And then, because bitterness has a sense of humor, I added, I just didn't know the right thing would require a folder this thick. Mina laughed quietly. It usually does, she said. In June, the bank officially discharged the lien. They sent me a letter on thick paper with serious language, saying the HELOC was invalid due to fraud. They apologized for inconvenience, which is what institutions say when they nearly lose you your home. I framed that letter too, not because I'm sentimental, because I'm learning. On June 23, 2025, at 11:18 a.m., Mina and I went back to the county recorder. We recorded a new deed, not to an LLC, not to Melissa, not to anyone who could twist my trust into a weapon. We placed the house into a properly drafted trust with strict rules that required my presence, my consent, my signature verified in person. Mina explained every clause to me slowly, like you explained something precious. This doesn't mean you're giving up control, she said. It means you're putting control in a structure that can't be manipulated. I signed with a steady hand. I watched the clerk stamp the document. It was a small sound, thunk, thunk, like the house itself taking a breath. Melissa didn't come back. She didn't show up crying in my driveway. She didn't bang on the door in cinematic rage. She vanished into the consequences of her own choices. I heard through a cousin that she was telling people her dad is cruel, that I picked a house over family. I didn't correct it, because the people who would believe that were never on my side anyway. One evening in July, I sat on my porch with a bowl of peaches, cut the way Diane used to cut them, slices fanned out, a sprinkle of sugar. The air was warm. A neighbor's sprinkler clicked rhythmically like a metronome. I watched the street. Mrs. Klein walked her dog. The teenage boy revved his motorcycle. The mail truck passed at 1:12 p.m., as if nothing had happened. And for the first time in months, my chest felt quieter. Not happy, but settled. I thought of that day in the closing room, the fluorescent lights, the pens, the neat stacks of paper. I thought of Jennifer's voice when she said my name, Mr. Walter Hart. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. It was just a name said out loud in a room where my daughter had tried to erase it. And that's the thing people don't understand. When you get old, the world starts trying to turn you into an object, a burden, an account, a property, a case. You begin to disappear, unless you refuse. I finished my peaches, rinsed the bowl, and put Diane's mug back on the shelf. Then I locked my door, not out of fear, but out of certainty, because the house still knew my footsteps. And now finally so did the law.